Well, good morning. You guys are looking good today. If you'll take out your message notes, I want to begin a new decade with a new series that's called What It Means to Follow Jesus. When Jesus was 30 years old, he began his public ministry, and the first thing he did was go gather a group of guys who he could train. They are called his disciples. And many times in scriptures it tells us that he invited people to become his disciple. In Matthew 9, verse 9, it says this: as Jesus was going down the road, he saw Matthew sitting at his tax collection booth. "Come be my disciple," Jesus said. So Matthew got up and followed him. Now today, Jesus Christ makes this exact same offer to you. Come be my disciple. He's asking you this in 2010. Come be my disciple. Now, what is a disciple? The word disciple comes from the Latin word disciples or disciples. In the Greek, it is the word mathetes, which is in the Bible, and it means a student. It means a learner. It means a pupil. A disciple is an apprentice. When a mentor takes on somebody to train them, they are called their disciple. And the word in the Bible is actually used four different ways. First, it's referred to as anybody who's just being trained by anybody else. If you're in training, you have a supervisor who's training you, you are being discipled by that supervisor. Moses' disciple was Joshua. Elijah's disciple was Elisha. David's disciple was his son Solomon. Elisha had disciples of his own. John the Baptist had disciples. Paul had a disciple named Timothy, and later he talks about 6 guys who traveled with him on the road. One was Gaius, Aristarchus, Secundus, Epaphroditus. He tells us who the guys that he was mentoring was. And a disciple is just somebody who's being mentored by somebody else. So that's the first way it's used in the Bible. The second way it's used in the Bible is to refer to the 12 disciples, specifically the 12 guys that Jesus chose, which we also call apostles. The third way it's used is in the book of Acts. The word disciple is just a synonym for Christian. You know, in the Bible days, they weren't called Christians. They were called disciples. In fact, it wasn't until the church had spread completely out of Israel into Antioch, where at that little church, they were first called Christians. So in the Bible times, nobody was called a Christian. They were called disciples. But what I want us to look at this morning is Jesus' use of the term. Jesus frequently took a very common word like student, pupil, disciple, apprentice, and he adds new meaning to it. He infuses it, he injects new meaning into it. And so I want us to look at Jesus' definition of what it means to be a disciple. Because about 10 times in Scripture, Jesus says, if you do this, then you're my disciple. If you do this, then you can follow me. And so we want to look at radical discipleship as we start off this series on what it means to follow Jesus.